giving the presentation. And later today, we'll have a little survey that'll come out. And if you could, please answer it. We'd appreciate it. Thanks so much. And I'm going to turn it over to Kim.
Hey everybody, good morning, and just want to welcome everybody to Love Data Week. Thank you for joining this session on how data governance can protect organizational data. I just want to introduce myself real quick. My name is Kim Berlin. I'm the Director of Enterprise Data and Analytics. I'm also the chair of the Data Governance Council at Stony Brook, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you today on this presentation. So. Data governance is the key to protecting the things that you love. And before we, dive into details, it's important to sort of ground ourselves in what data governance really means. Um, at its core, data governance is a strategic, structured framework, and it guides how data is managed, protected, and used across an organization. So it brings together policies, processes, define roles and responsibilities, people, supporting technologies to ensure that data is accurate, reliable, and secure. And so, why does data governance matter? Because organizations collect a lot of data, right? Today, organizations are generating, collecting, managing more data than ever before. And with that comes risks. Every organization faces a range of data security risks. Data governance can prevent and reduce these risks. So when there are so many pressures for data protection, privacy laws, compliance requirements, having usable data, it becomes clear that organizations must be proactive in how they manage data and protect their information. So many organizations have a data governance program, and including Stony Brook University. We have a data governance council that's going on to I think its ninth year. And we even have a dedicated data governance team. Teresa Deemer, Assistant Director for Data Governance and Management, and Ariel Markowitz, Business Analyst for Data Governance. And with an effective governance, organizations have clarity into what data they have, where it's located, who can access it, how it should be managed across the entire life cycle from the time it's created until maybe it's no longer needed for disposal. So what I'm going to talk about today in this presentation is we're going to look at some key data risks and how a strong data governance can help prevent, mitigate, or minimize those risks. And by the end, you'll see how governance not only reduces exposure to data, but it also builds trust, improves operational efficiency within the organization, and supports long-term solutions. So these are sort of the four key data risks that I decided to focus on today. So we'll look at what each one of these means, the potential impacts, the causes, and how data governance plays a role in protecting information. So we have oversharing data, data system and sprawl, data security, and emerging data risks. So we're going to go through these one by one and walk through and showing how a strong data governance practices can help reduce and mitigate these risks for each of these. So, and these challenges, I just want to say, these challenges aren't always technical. They can also be cultural, procedural, educational, and deeply rooted in real business operations. And if unmanaged, they can have serious and lasting impacts. And as we'll see, the consequences of data exposure from privacy violations to significant financial penalties underscores just how important effective governance really is. The oversharing data. Oversharing data risk in simple terms really occurs when too much personal or sensitive information, such as documents, files, data, is shared with more people than intended, or it's sent to the wrong recipients. Oversharing is one of the most underestimated and persistent risks. It often happens unintentionally. Files are shared, especially within like collaboration and email tools, with overly broad permissions or links to documents that get forwarded well beyond the intended audience with access to allow anybody with the link to open it. Someone may share a document with a group instead of an individual, forget to add a password, accidentally include an unintended recipient. So sometimes this is a one-time error, like sending confidential files to the wrong person. But with collaboration tools, it can also be a more longer term and ongoing issue where access to documents has no expiration limit set, a project from years ago and nothing gets cleaned up. People move on to other positions but still retain access to these files. So outdated permissions are clearly also an issue. So all of these examples of oversharing are pretty easy mistakes to make, but they do have an impact in exposing sensitive information and can violate privacy policies. So data governance plays a key role in reducing oversharing through a combination of education, policy, and procedures. Clear guidelines on handling and sharing data can help employees understand when and how data can be shared safely. Also, requiring systems to clean up tasks for collaboration tools or periodically review access to systems, can identify and remove unnecessary uh, permissions. Putting expiration limits on single-use files and allowing things to remain open indefinitely. And I think also data stewardship is such a critical role as well. Data stewards define those guardrails for protocols for using and sharing data from their systems. They also define the classification sensitivity of the data, whether it falls under the privacy regulations, and further determines how those data can be handled. So that's oversharing risks. System and data sprawl. Data sprawl is the sort of uncontrolled spread and duplication of data across multiple systems. Data sprawl can occur when uh, information becomes scattered across too many tools, shared drives, shares, personal devices, cloud platforms, and it can happen for a lot of reasons. Organizations generate huge amounts of information every day. Redundant copies get created across different systems. New applications are sometimes spun up without a lot of governance behind it, and integrations between systems happen without being documented. Also, silos form. People sometimes use personal devices or unapproved apps. It's natural for people to store it, wherever it's convenient. So the risks, all of these things contribute to data spreading further and further away from its central, well-managed locations. And when data becomes scattered, several risks start to grow. Data security risks increase. There's a potential for different systems to have different security applied because they don't all have the same types of security in place. And so when that happens, there's more potential for entry points that are there for attack. Um, so access becomes harder to manage. More places with sensitive data exist, the more difficult it is to respond to privacy regulations like GDPR or the right to be forgotten. So it begins to know like also where the authoritative version exists and operational inefficiency drops or operational efficiency would drop. People struggle to find the right information. Data quality can become inconsistent because there's different versions on different platforms. So decision making can also suffer. Lastly, it's worth mentioning that data sprawl also leads to increased storage costs. So some of the ways that data governance can help is maintaining system and data inventories. So governance starts by making sure we know what systems we have, what data they hold, and who owns them. Understanding the sensitivity classification of each type of data ensures that our most critical information receives the appropriate level of protection. Tracking data flows into and out of a system. So how many different transfer points are there? Data lifecycle management governance defines how long should be kept, when it should be archived or deleted, so that obsolete data are not stored forever. And then having regular audits and permission reviews to prevent outdated or excessive access, keeping data secure and reducing risks. So when data governance is applied effectively, the results are pretty significant. Data becomes more organized and predictable. It's easier to find. Sensitive information is easier to protect. It's not scattered all over the place. Compliance becomes more achievable. Storage costs decrease and operational efficiency improves. So in the absence of a data governance framework, we end up with fragmented data and management practices. The third one I want to bring up is security risk. And this is probably the most familiar type of data risk. At its basic level, at least my simple definition of it is that it refers to unauthorized access to systems, networks, and digital content. Every organization faces a range of security threats, whether it's unauthorized access, ransomware attacks, unintentional human error, cybersecurity attacks. These are a clear example. Intentional malicious attacks through hacking into systems, spreading malware, viruses, phishing emails. These types of attacks can cause vulnerability not only to a single machine, but also to an entire network. While many of these attacks are intended to mimic a legitimate link or function, an employee can unknowingly allow entry of it into the organization, where it can quickly spread and access data systems and infiltrate entire networks. The approach and design to preventing these types of attacks, of course, falls under the responsibility of a security team of an organization in terms of implementing, designing firewalls, network security, single single sign-on, multi-factor authentication. But data governance has a role as well. Data governance promotes data management processes and protocols that can reduce risks. Establishing frameworks, promoting data policies, promoting standards that define how data is classified, accessed, and secured throughout its lifecycle. The data classification team helps teams understand sensitivity of information so that it can be handled appropriately. Data lifecycle management, such as data disposal of obsolete information, can reduce the data that can potentially be exposed in the first place in case of an attack. It also minimizes the impact of potential data exposure, reducing that risk. So it's really a multi-layered approach. That means implementing strong security measures, strong firewalls, more education to end users, regular training to foster that community and culture within an organization that employees are aware of what to watch out for and able to spot and recognize malicious attacks. And the last data risk I want to touch on is emerging risks. So this is refers to new, evolving, unforeseen threats to managing data integrity, privacy, and security. Uh, as technology evolves, so naturally, so do the challenges that come with that as well. And I think, well, AI is a perfectly good example, and we have to recognize that there can be associated risks that come with these new technologies. And at this very moment, AI is pretty much emerging everywhere in every platform we are using. So in terms of risks, for example, AI algorithms can potentially, maybe unintentionally, create biases in data, misinterpretation, infringe upon privacy concerns. There are stringent privacy regulations requiring organizations to be vigilant and to be in compliance, making sure that sensitive data is not fed into data models, making sure that an organization adheres to using approved tools. So being proactive to stay informed is one of the roles of data governance. data policies that can adapt and extend to new technologies. This is a big challenge, because of course there are existing data policies, but then how do these new emerging technologies fit into that? I think that's a big challenge to stay ahead of. Education and improved tools, data tools, is very important. Communication and education and guidelines around using advanced technologies. And also understanding that if you do decide to use these technologies, then there has to be a clear accountability in what those results produce. So I just want to finish with, Stony Brook has an established and comprehensive data governance framework. It is driven to improve data quality, strengthen data protections, and improve institutional effectiveness, ensuring that universities' data can be trusted, protected, and used to support a lot of strategic goals. The framework is structured by the roles and responsibilities that support it, includes and is overseen by a Data Governance Council with executive sponsorship. And some of the key projects that we've been working on that are relevant to this topic are that we have a data asset inventory that we've been keeping for several years now. Basically, it's every data system on campus where we collect information about who owns the information and who runs the system, who are the data trustees and data stewards, what kind of sensitivity classification is there on that data, what sort of integrations are going into and out of the system, is there a data disposition practice, and some other information, as well as we're collecting data access management procedures, which tells us the different ways that data stewards can manage user access to the systems and um, whether it's ongoing uh, access that's regular or if it's you know special type of access that's needed and also how people get removed. We have a data dictionary, and there was a talk yesterday about that. And we also have coming soon some guidelines to appropriate use of data. So these are just some of the key projects that the Data Governance Council has been working on. And I also leave a link here for data uh, policies from Stony Brook. So there's three data policies also provided by Stony Brook University that pertain to how we manage and access and use data. So that is my talk, and I'm happy to take any questions.
There's nothing in the chat, so if anybody wants to
Just shout out anything if you,
unmute, feel free.
yeah. Phil, you are muted.
So see a lot of cases where people share files um, as attachments to emails. They maybe should be doing it, sharing them as Google Drive files, maybe instead. Um, and so people have these kind of habits of just doing that. And Um, are you doing anything to address that, and who's responsible for doing the training on that?
Yeah, well, I think I agree. I think that the CISO group and the security team has some um, training on how to do things like that, how to, not putting data onto flash drives and potentially leaving those drives behind somewhere or so I think I recall doing some training on that, and so I think it's falls under their purview. But we do also have we are currently working on some guidelines for sort of appropriate use of data, but I think there should also be something, maybe a quick sort of guideline that people can refer to without doing the training but something on this that's on our website that can be also, how appropriate handling of data.
So
Yeah.
there was a case in, we use tools for recruiting people. And it turns out a lot of people are downloading the resumes from the tool and then they're emailing them to other people. And this isn't kind of the classic university data situation, but it kind of shows how, you know, uh, what was your expression? The data spread or whatever
Mm.
happens. And um, so it's kind of like we have to have kind of specific use cases that people are thinking about in the institution and how it applies to the data that they're playing with. Just
Okay.
Braden?
So thanks. And Kim, great presentation. Phil, to your point about like resumes and things like that coming out of, Taleo, or it could be Interfolio. One of the things Kim referenced were the data stewards and the fact that they have drafted and actually created and filed data access policies. Those policies created by each data steward should outline the way that data should be treated. Now, I think you could easily say, oh, is that being followed? Are those procedures as explicit as they should be? All of that, of course, is still a work in progress and can always get better. But that's actually where responsibility lies, is back with the data steward outlining for users, how can this data be used and how can it not be used?
right. So thank you. And I'm going to say this is a good effort and a great presentation, Kim. Thank you.
Well,
So
thanks, Phil. Thanks, Braden.
it's critical to our data security and everything else about the institution. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it is the role of data governance isn't always obvious. And so I'm kind of happy to sort of try to point out some of how data governance plays a role in some of these areas and why it's important.
So I have an actual question too, Kim.
Great.
We're in the process of, I think, hiring a chief privacy officer. And so somebody on campus will have, broadly writ responsibility for the privacy program on campus. How do you anticipate that might intersect data governance and things that might be on the horizon in the next year or so as a result of an increased focus on privacy?
Mm. Well, I think that person will have a lot of on their plate. I think it's a great position. How they would intersect data governance. I think they will, of course, have a seat at the council, and I think maybe in evaluating how Stony Brook protects its data today, and perhaps looking for ways of filling some gaps that may exist, I think is pretty critical. Um, I think there's, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. And also, I mean, I think one of the big gaps in our areas is really education and sort of getting the word out like this and making sure that all employees from the time that they start until, on ongoing, that they have all the resources and information that they need to handle the information properly, that they all know and are confident that they are doing that the right way and the way that Stony Brook University protocols should should do that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for your time today. I hope you have an enjoyable rest of the Love Data Week and enjoy some more sessions.